I'm Lena Hayes, 28. Female. I live in a small apartment in the city. The rent always slightly higher than I'd like, but that's the price of being an event photographer. My life is a blur of focusing on other people's perfect moments, birthday parties, anniversaries, and, most often, weddings. But no matter how many beautiful photos I capture, the one memory I keep trying to get out of focus is the day my own family made me feel completely invisible. This is the story of how my sister, Clara, tried to erase me from her wedding, and how one moment of kindness from a stranger changed everything, leading to a perfectly composed act of revenge. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The air in the grand ballroom was thick with the scent of lilies and generational wealth. This was Clara's day, and she had spent the last 2 years and 6 figures ensuring every detail screamed luxury. As her younger sister, I was supposed to be a silent, appreciative fixture. As an event photographer, I was supposed to be working, but Clara, ever the control freak, insisted I be a guest and hired another, more expensive photographer, a final insult that stung. She wanted me to watch, not participate. I found my seating card. It wasn't at the family table, nor with the cousins, or even the friends. My card, bearing the name Lena Hayes, was at the last, round table by the service entrance, a small, sad island for 8 people where only one seat, mine, was taken. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I knew Clara, 30, a marketing director, valued optics above all else. My parents, wrapped up in the excitement, and Marcus Vance's, 32, real estate broker, impressive net worth, hadn't noticed the slight, or maybe they just chose not to. They were at the massive, elevated, family and VIP table, laughing and taking selfies. I was practically in the kitchen's exhaust path. I stared at the 7 empty chairs around me, feeling the heat of humiliation crawl up my neck. I was the sister, the maid of honor she didn't pick, the family member she couldn't neatly fit into her perfect aesthetic. I was the dark stain she tried to wipe away. I busied myself, pretending to check my phone, making sure I looked far too engrossed in a text to care about being utterly alone. The reception was starting. The MC called for the bridal party introductions. Marcus and Clara made their entrance to a standing ovation. As I clapped, I saw my mother look over, her smile tight. She gave me a little head tilt, the universal parental sign for, "Why aren't you mingling, dear?" How could I mingle with 7 empty chairs? The thought of staying the next 4 hours like this, a social leper at my own sister's wedding, was unbearable. I started calculating my exit strategy. Fake an illness, claim an urgent photography gig. Anything to escape the weight of the collective pity I could feel radiating from the nearest full table. Just as I decided to slip out during the toast, a shadow fell over my table. I looked up. Standing there was a man, mid-20s, impeccably dressed, but with the slightly rumpled, intense look of someone who belonged more on a battlefield than a banquet. He was holding a glass of scotch and a small, professional camera, a rangefinder, not a wedding DSLR. He didn't look like Marcus's real estate buddies. He didn't look like Clara's marketing friends. He looked like an outsider, just like me. He didn't introduce himself. He just pulled out the chair directly across from me, sat down, and leaned forward, his eyes scanning the room as if a bomb might go off. "Hi," I managed, startled. He turned to me, his gaze sharp and direct. His name, I would later learn, was Julian Chen, 29, photojournalist. He didn't smile. "I'm going to need you to act like you're with me," he said, his voice low and urgent, without breaking eye contact. "Look happy. Look necessary. Look like you're exactly where you're supposed to be." He set the camera on the table, a solid, silver and black barrier between us, and then he settled in, waiting for my reaction. His expression was serious, almost challenging, and it instantly cut through my humiliation with a strange sense of mission. It was the first exciting thing to happen to me all day. I took a deep breath, and for the first time since I walked in, I sat up straight, ready to play the part. The humiliation was still there, but now, it had a partner, curiosity. I was no longer just the sister who was forced to sit alone. I was an accomplice. I didn't hesitate. Okay, I whispered back, matching his intensity. What are we doing? Julian, 29, photojournalist, picked up his glass and tapped it lightly against mine, a quiet toast that felt incredibly loud in the grand, orchestrated silence of the wedding hall. We're blending in, he murmured, his eyes flickering past my shoulder. I'm working. And you, he added, finally offering a genuine, if brief, smile, her my very necessary distraction. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. For the first time that day, I felt a flicker of interest stronger than my embarrassment. Sitting with a mysterious, handsome stranger on a secret mission was definitely better than sulking by the service entrance alone. I shifted in my chair and realized I had an immediate prop. I placed my elbows on the table and leaned in, mirroring his posture. I started talking, my voice a quiet, continuous stream, creating the illusion of deep conversation. I talked about my life, the frustrating pursuit of light and truth in event photography, the ridiculous demands of some clients. Julian listened, nodding occasionally, his eyes always moving. He seemed to be cataloging the room, not the pretty flowers or the expensive dresses, but the subtle tensions, the forced smiles, the things my sister, Clara, 30, marketing director, had tried to hide beneath a veneer of perfection. It was during the father of the bride's speech, a treacly, long-winded affair, that the real reason for my isolation became clear. My Aunt Carol, a notorious family gossip, drifted over, clutching a cocktail. She didn't look at Julian, she only looked at me, a mixture of pity and smug judgment in her eyes. Lena, dear, she began, her voice a sickly sweet drawl. I was so surprised to see you all the way back here. I thought you would be with the family. Julian set his glass down, his expression unreadable, and I jumped in before Aunt Carol could deliver the punchline. Aunt Carol, I said, my voice firm and confident, I'm actually here with Julian. We needed a quiet corner to discuss a collaboration. He's a very famous photojournalist, actually. I used the title Julian had given himself earlier. It was a massive, confident lie. Aunt Carol's eyes widened, finally acknowledging the handsome man next to me, who gave her a cool, professional nod. Aunt Carol, temporarily stunned by the word, famous, and Julian's presence, stammered, "Oh, well, that's lovely." But Clara said, she hesitated, then leaned in conspiratorially. She said she put you here on purpose. To keep your amateur equipment from cluttering up the nice tables. She wanted the focus to be strictly on the guests who brought proper gifts, dear. The words landed like a physical blow. Not a mistake. Not a logistical error, it was a decree. Clara had intentionally exiled me to the shame table, because she thought my equipment, though not with mead, or my modest gift, wasn't up to her standards. The shallow cruelty of it took my breath away. It confirmed every insecurity I'd ever had about my sister's view of me. To her, I was an embarrassment, a cheap prop in her expensive life. Julian, sensing the shift in my posture, gently placed his hand on my forearm, a brief, reassuring pressure. We're just fine here. Ma'am, he said smoothly to Aunt Carol. The light is perfect, and frankly, we have the best view of the human drama. He smiled, but his eyes were like chips of ice. Aunt Carol, her gossip thwarted, and her target suddenly accompanied by a charismatic stranger, huffed and drifted back toward the open bar, no doubt already inventing a new story about my secret affair with a photojournalist. I looked at Julian, my eyes stinging. She did that on purpose, I whispered, the rage finally bubbling up. My own sister. Julian met my gaze. People who try too hard to control the frame always reveal the most interesting cracks, he said cryptically. But now you know the truth, Lena. You have a clear picture of the situation. What are you going to do with that knowledge? His question was a challenge. A photographer asking me how I planned to use the information I had just been given. I tightened my jaw. The shame was gone, replaced by a cold, purposeful resolve. I was going to use my skills to expose the cracks he mentioned. Clara wanted a perfect wedding album. I was going to give her a perfect expose. From that moment on, Julian became my silent partner in observation, and I became his willing actor. We leaned into the role of the fascinating, slightly mysterious couple discussing important things in a quiet corner. We laughed at private jokes that didn't exist, our heads close, creating an impenetrable bubble around table 8. This was the most effective part of the revenge. Denying Clara and the rest of the judgmental family the satisfaction of seeing me alone and miserable. The fact that I was actually having a better time than most of the guests was the silent victory. Julian, a true photojournalist, was not here for the flowers. He confessed he was working on a personal project about the spectacle of American affluence. And the Vance Hayes wedding was a goldmine of forced smiles and transactional relationships. He wasn't taking photos of the cake, he was capturing the slight shift in Marcus's, 32, real estate brokered eyes when he looked at his expensive watch, or the strained pleasantries exchanged between Clara's parents and Marcus's steely-eyed corporate family. Your sister, Julian noted, quietly adjusting the settings on his discreet camera, is a beautiful subject, Lena. She is performing her happiness flawlessly. But the moment she thinks no one is looking, the whole production line stops. He pointed out a small, telling detail I had missed. During the cake cutting, Clara had fussed dramatically over Marcus, laughing for the main photographer. But as the photographer moved away, her entire expression collapsed into a look of exhausted calculation, before snapping back to a joyful bride. When the video camera swung past, it was an involuntary moment of authenticity that screamed transaction, rather than love. As a photographer myself, I knew exactly how to spot the difference between genuine emotion and a carefully curated pose. My own shame had transformed into professional detachment. I started using my photographer's eye too. Julian had given me a purpose: to truly see this wedding, not just feel judged by it. I noted the way Marcus kept his hand firmly on Clara's elbow, guiding her like a valuable, fragile possession. I noticed the tension in my mother's shoulders, the way she kept glancing at the VIP table, desperately seeking validation from Marcus's wealthy parents, who barely acknowledged her existence. The most crucial moment came during the traditional father-daughter dance. My father, a man who had always been too busy with work to teach me to drive, danced with Clara. It was a sweet, tear-jerking scene for the guests, but I saw the awkward distance between them, the stiffness in his arms. It was a scene for the cameras, not a moment of true connection. Suddenly, I saw Clara make a small, swift movement. As my father leaned in to whisper something to her, she covertly slipped a small, white envelope into his tuxedo pocket. It was fast, subtle, and clearly meant to be unnoticed. The movement was a classic money drop. A discreet payment, or perhaps a payoff. It was too secretive to be a simple card. Did you see that? I breathed, grabbing Julian's wrist. Julian, already looking, raised an eyebrow. Got it? He confirmed, giving his camera a tiny, nearly invisible click. He hadn't just seen it. He had photographed it. That wasn't a thank you card, Lena. That was a transaction. The realization hit me: this wedding wasn't just about love. It was about assets, optics, and potentially, something hidden and dirty. Clara's insistence on my isolation, the expensive photographer, the perfect facade. It all suddenly seemed less about her ego and more about control. She didn't just want me out of the spotlight. She wanted me away from anything I might photograph or overhear that could jeopardize her perfect day. My professional expertise was a liability to her. She knew I was a liability. I stated, the anger hardening my voice. She put me at the shame table to keep me from seeing the real story. I was shaking, not from sorrow, but from a surge of righteous professional indignation. The humiliation I had felt was a smokescreen for a deeper, darker family secret. And now, I had an ally who had the evidence. The feeling of being isolated was gone, replaced by the thrilling sense of being on the hunt. I was no longer the sad sister. I was a journalist's accomplice, holding a key piece of the puzzle. The game had officially changed from survival to investigation. With Julian's confirmation that the interaction between Clara and my father was captured, the dynamic shifted from acting to a genuine, covert investigation. Our table was no longer a place of exile, but a strategic command center. We spent the next hour dissecting the scene, our conversation a low, continuous buzz, like two spies exchanging information. Julian, the seasoned photojournalist, provided the objective lens. I, the family insider, provided the emotional context and history that made the image dangerous. That's the key, Julian explained, tapping the face of his camera. An image alone is just a photo. An image with irrefutable context is proof. He looked at me intently. What reason would your sister, the bride, have to secretly give your father a private envelope during the main dance? On a day that's supposed to be about unity and celebration. Why the need for a clandestine, almost furtive exchange? I racked my brain, filtering out years of petty sibling rivalry and focusing on facts. Clara, 30, marketing director, and my father had a complicated relationship based mostly on financial dependency. My father, years ago, had sunk most of his retirement savings into a disastrous business venture. It was only recently, in the last 6 months, that his financial situation had mysteriously improved, allowing him to afford his portion of the ridiculously expensive wedding. My dad was broke 6 months ago, I confessed to Julian, my voice barely audible above the band. He lost almost everything in a bad investment. Then, suddenly, he was fine. He never told me or my mom how he recovered. He just kept saying he had a plan for his golden years and was back in the game. He even put up a good chunk of cash for this wedding. Julian leaned back, absorbing this. And Marcus Vance, 32, real estate broker, is a wealthy man. Real estate. Money laundering is a classic problem in that sector. But let's stick to what we know. Clara is an expensive bride. What if the money your dad is now spending on his retirement, or even on this wedding, didn't come from a sudden recovery? What if it came from the groom? The suggestion was horrifying, yet plausible. If Marcus had provided a significant amount of money to bail out my father, Clara would have the ultimate leverage over both of them. And the exchange of the envelope could be anything: a repayment schedule, a final installment, or even a subtle threat, a reminder to my father of who was truly in control of his future. The act of giving it to him on camera during a public, intimate moment felt like an intimidation tactic disguised as affection. A final, beautiful power play. This theory perfectly explained Clara's sister's decree to isolate me. She knew I was observant. She knew my profession was about capturing truth, not just prettiness. If I had been sitting at the family table, with my professional eyes open and my phone camera ready, I might have caught the exchange myself, or heard the nervous whispers surrounding my father's recent miracle recovery. She didn't want the truth, she wanted her curated, expensive lie to be the only thing recorded. She exiled me because I'm a photographer. I repeated, the realization solidifying my resolve. She knew my skill was her biggest vulnerability. If I had been closer, I might have caught the numbers on the envelope, the look in my dad's eyes. Julian didn't offer sympathy, he offered strategy. Then we focus on the aftermath. That envelope is now a hot potato. Where is your father going to put it? He can't keep it in his tuxedo pocket all night. If we can get an image of the envelope again, perhaps in his hand, or being moved, it becomes concrete evidence. And if the transaction is tied to the wedding, there must be a paper trail, a document, a contract, something Clara is terrified of getting out. Our conversation was interrupted by the sudden, loud announcement of the bouquet toss. Everyone rushed to the dance floor. This was our chance. My father, distracted by the spectacle, excused himself to the restroom. Go, Julian urged, his eyes sparking with adrenaline. I need the key. I need the truth you can deliver. I pushed back my chair. I wasn't the humiliated sister anymore. I was Lena Hayes, event photographer, and I was hunting for the money shot. I hurried through the milling crowd, fueled by a mixture of anger, determination, and the thrill of finally turning the lens back on the ones who had wronged me. The empty seat at table 8 was forgotten. I was fully focused on the task. My personal revenge now, aligned with a professional drive for the truth. I followed my father, trying to keep a casual distance. The marble, floored hallway leading to the restrooms was blessedly empty, save for a few caterers gliding past. He paused by a small, floral draped side table where guests were dropping off gifts. It was a secluded spot, momentarily away from the main wedding chaos. He reached into his tux pocket, pulled out the distinctive white envelope, and hesitated. He looked nervous, checking over his shoulder before opening the envelope. Just enough to slide a finger inside, feeling the thickness of the contents. He confirmed what Julian and I suspected: it wasn't a card. It was clearly a thick wad of folded paper, likely cash or a crucial document. My father's face, usually so hearty and red, was drawn, the worry lines around his eyes deep and visible under the harsh chandelier light. He was caught between relief and fear. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment. I had to get a picture, not just of him, but of the envelope itself, proving it was separate from the hundreds of other wedding cards. But I didn't have my camera. Clara had effectively disarmed me. I quickly assessed the situation. I was a professional photographer. My best equipment was my eye, and my most accessible tool was my phone. It was clumsy, noticeable, and nowhere near the quality of my professional gear, but it was all I had. I pulled out my phone, flipped it to the camera app, and pretended to be searching for a signal, the blue light of the screen reflecting on my face. My father, seeing no one, slipped the envelope into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and buttoned it up quickly. But before he did, a small, tell-tale piece of the paper caught on the edge of the jacket, sticking out just enough to be visible. It was a crisp, emerald green edge, the color of a legal document, not money. I knew this was my only chance. I raised my phone, angling the camera discreetly to capture the side profile of his jacket, focusing on the slight bulge and the protruding green paper. Click. The shutter sound was muffled, but loud enough to make me flinch. My father turned sharply, his eyes immediately locking onto me. He didn't look angry, he looked absolutely terrified. The color drained from his face when he saw me holding the phone. "Lina, what are you doing back here?" he asked, his voice shaking. Far from the booming father of the bride from earlier. I tried to keep my expression neutral. "Just trying to get a signal, Dad. It's dead back here." I started to walk past him, but he took a step, blocking my path. "Let me see your phone," he said, his tone suddenly hard, bordering on desperate. "Show me what you just took a picture of." The request was so out of character that it confirmed everything. He knew he'd been caught. This wasn't about a simple photo. This was about the security of the secret Clara had forced him to keep. "Dad, I'm just trying to call a cab," I insisted, clutching the phone tightly. "Why? Is everything okay?" "No, everything is not okay," he hissed, glancing around wildly. "Your sister told me you were making trouble. She told me to keep you away from Marcus. Now show me the phone, Lena, or you're going to ruin everything." He took a threatening step toward me. Before he could reach me, a calm, strong voice cut through the tension. "Everything all right here, sir? Lena? The caterer needs to know if we want the extra bottle of the good champagne." It was Julian, emerging from the shadows near a service door, his presence a shield. He didn't look aggressive, just concerned, but his gaze was locked on my father's agitated state. Julian knew exactly how to make a scene disappear. My father, startled and instantly mindful of maintaining the facade of a perfect, dignified wedding, visibly deflated. "Everything is fine," my father mumbled, quickly smoothing his jacket and forcing a strained smile. "Just a small misunderstanding. We were just discussing my jacket. It's a new rental." He hurried away toward the restroom, his shoulders hunched in defeat. I walked toward Julian, my hand trembling as I showed him the image. It was a little blurry, but undeniable a close, up of the jacket pocket, with the distinctive green edge of the document sticking out. Julian took the phone, his face intense. "The shot is perfect, Lena. Now we know two things: the envelope is a document, and your father is desperately trying to hide it. We just confirmed the cover-up." He handed the phone back. "The only thing that matters now is the content of that green paper. And I know where we might find the truth." He looked toward the entrance of the ballroom, his eyes glittering with a hunter's excitement. The real confrontation was about to begin, and it wouldn't be with my father. It would be with the architect of this whole disaster, my sister, Clara. We made our way back to the relative safety of table 8. The wedding was reaching the stage of slightly sloppy, high-energy dancing. Most guests were too drunk or too preoccupied with the spectacle to notice us. Julian sat down and immediately pulled up a photo on his camera's small screen. Not the one of my dad, but the one of Clara, 30. Marketing director making the covered exchange during the dance. This is the core evidence, Julian stated, his voice low. The question is, what is the document? I did some quick research while you were gone. Marcus Vance, 32, real estate broker, and his firm were recently implicated in a complex, multi-million-dollar tax avoidance scheme. It was covered up, but the local paper kept digging. They settled out of court, but some key internal documents, including an NDA, were leaked. He zoomed in on the small green edge of the paper in the photo of my father. That color, that texture, it looks like a proprietary legal document. Here's my theory, Lena. Marcus paid your father off to help him secure a local property deal, or maybe even to take the fall for a small part of the tax scheme. The envelope contains a non-disclosure agreement. Zenday. A contract to keep quiet about the arrangement, and perhaps about Marcus's involvement in the larger scandal. Clara made the drop to ensure my dad signed the final version on her big day, giving her ultimate control. The sheer coldness of the plot stunned me. My sister hadn't just slighted me, she had orchestrated a financial scheme that dragged our father into potential legal peril, all to ensure her luxurious future with Marcus. Her perfect wedding was built on a foundation of betrayal and silence. The humiliation I felt at table 8 was nothing compared to the disgust I felt now. She wanted me gone, because I would have photographed the truth, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and certainty. But she forgot that I'm a professional. I don't just take pictures, I see patterns. Now is the time to use that knowledge, Julian advised. She won't look at a photojournalistic image of a secret deal. She will look at a photo that threatens her optics. Her perfect image. We need to create the perfect leverage. I thought fast. I had the photo of the worried father and the green document. Julian had the photo of the secretive bride. But neither of those images, on their own, would stop the wedding and force a confession. Clara was a marketing director. She understood damage control. I needed a picture that was undeniable, immediate, and catastrophic to her reputation. Her entire wedding is about the narrative, I realized. If I destroy the narrative, I destroy the wedding. I'm going to find the real photographer, the one she paid a fortune for, and I'm going to make sure the wrong picture gets on the projection screen. I spotted the hired photographer, a young man named Rick, huddled by his equipment table, looking exhausted. He was uploading his best shots to a live digital projection screen for the guests to enjoy. Rick's laptop. I whispered to Julian. His uploading live. I can sneak in a picture from my phone. It's low resolution, but on a massive screen, the drama is what matters. Julian smiled, a genuine, approving smile that sent a jolt of energy through me. I'll cover the flank. Get the angle of the projection screen in the frame, Lena. Make sure your sister sees it when she is least expecting it. I slipped away, moving through the crowd with the practiced invisibility of an event worker. Rick was distracted, chatting with a server. I slid my phone into his laptop's open port, bypassing the usual security, and found the folder for the live feed. I quickly transferred my blurry, but damning, shot of my father with the green document sticking out of his pocket. It took 3 agonizing seconds. I named the file VP Femile Wide AGHIGHT and hit upload. As I backed away, blending into the dancers, the projection screen flashed. The beautiful, professional shots of the bridal party, the rings, and the cake suddenly vanished. They were replaced by my grainy, phone-captured image of a worried father in a tuxedo. Eyes wide with fear, fumbling with a piece of paper that clearly wasn't a wedding card. The image was captioned FAMILYHGHIGHTS. The room went from noisy to a deadly, confused silence. Clara, who was laughing with Marcus by the head table, saw it. Her face, moments ago radiant, became a mask of absolute horror. She wasn't angry, she was exposed. The projection screen, her altar of perfection, had just broadcast her biggest secret. The confrontation was complete, and it was documented, undeniable, and perfectly timed. The moment my photo flashed on the screen, the entire wedding fractured. The silence lasted only a few seconds before the confused murmur began, quickly turning into a cacophony of questions and pointed stares. Marcus Vance's, 32, real estate broker parents, seated at the VIP table, were the first to react, their faces turning from curiosity to cold, immediate disapproval. Marcus, who had been laughing, froze, his attention snapping from the screen to Clara's 30, marketing director. Clara's eyes were locked on me, a venomous, furious glare that said she knew I was the source. She pushed past Marcus and began to march across the dance floor toward the service entrance, her expensive dress bunched in her hands. She was no longer the composed bride, she was a woman whose perfect structure had just crumbled. I stayed put, letting her come to me. Julian, 29, photojournalist, materialized at my shoulder, a silent, comforting presence, his camera now resting, the moment fully captured. Clara reached our table, her voice a low, dangerous snarl. "You petty little bitch! You ruined it? What did you do?" I didn't raise my voice. I kept it cool, steady, and professional. "I took a picture, Clara. That's what I do." And that's what I saw at our father, terrified, clutching a document you gave him. A document that looks exactly like the NDA Marcus's firm uses. Her facade finally shattered. "You don't know anything! It's a loan repayment?" "He's grateful," she hissed, trying to force a defensive narrative. "Grateful people don't look that terrified," I countered. "And if it was a simple loan, why was I exiled to this table?" "You were afraid, Clara. You knew if the real photographer was here, they'd see the truth. You knew I could see it. You didn't want the truth to ruin your expensive lie." Marcus and his parents had now arrived, the three of them forming a severe wall behind Clara. "What is she talking about, Clara?" Marcus demanded, his voice devoid of the earlier wedding day charm, replaced by the tone of a harsh businessman. He wasn't looking at Clara, he was looking at the projection screen, which was still displaying the damning, blurry shot. Clara turned, her face a pathetic mess of tears and smudged makeup. "It's nothing, Marcus. It's an old business agreement. She's jealous." "She's been jealous of me her whole life." This was the opening I needed. I didn't engage with the insult. I went straight for the professional kill shot. "It's an NDA related to the Kinsley property development that's currently under investigation," I stated clearly, turning to Marcus and his parents. "I believe that document forces my father to take the fall for a small regulatory violation, to keep the investigation from reaching Marcus's desk. And Clara made sure he signed it today, on her wedding day, making our entire family complicit." Marcus's father, the patriarch of the Vance fortune, didn't look at Clara. He looked at Marcus with utter disdain. "Get the lawyers. Now." He didn't need to say more. The scandal, the messy family drama, the clear lack of control. It was all too much for the Vance brand. The wedding was over. As the room descended into an awkward frenzy of whispers and exits, Clara stood frozen, watching her perfect day evaporate. The final, perfect blow was delivered not by me, but by Julian. "Just so you know, Clara," Julian said quietly, pulling out his camera and showing her the crystal, clear photo he took a close up of her hand slipping the envelope to my father. "A professional lens never lies. And this one is going straight into my editor's hands. The real story of the Vance wedding is about to be printed." I took a deep, satisfying breath. My parents rushed over, but they weren't angry, they were confused, terrified, and finally, seeing me. My father, realizing I had exposed the secret he was too scared to face, didn't defend Clara. He just looked at me with a desperate plea for help. The isolation was over. I looked at Julian, and he offered me a nod, a silent recognition of a mission accomplished. My revenge was complete, not as an act of petty spite, but as an act of professional truth. I had started the day alone, humiliated, and exiled. I ended it with an irrefutable photograph, a powerful ally, and the definitive proof that my sister's perfect life was the biggest lie of all. The lens of the camera had become my most powerful weapon, and the empty seat at table 8 was now the undisputed center of the story. The truth, perfectly in focus, was finally out.